Welcome to the Overheard podcast recorded live in Banff. My name is Daniel Rudel. With me always off camera today is Matty Rage. Believe it or not, at his day job, got beef blood in his eye. Who knows? So he's all puffed up. He's not feeling being on camera, which you can't blame him. Thank you so much for joining us. We are not in our normal studio today. We are at Mount Norquay in the Cascade Lodge. If it is your first time listening to us, please don't forget to give us a like and subscribe. Every little bit helps, bringing you more guests, more locations, more information for the townspeople of Banff. So don't be shy. Before we get too far into things, we're going to cut to a little word from our sponsors, getting it in there early today. So we'll catch up with you in 20 seconds. This episode is brought to you by the Non-Alc Shaft. If you're looking for a clean energy drink that's gluten-free, vegan, naturally caffeinated with real coffee, perfect for the quick pick-me-up in the middle of the afternoon, or heck, in the morning when you're on the way to the hill, be sure to check out the beautiful black non-alc can sold as singles or as 4-packs down at Townhouse Liquor. I know my fridge is stocked up. It's like the longest 20 seconds. We are back. All right. Our guest this week, Andre Quennenville, General Manager of Mount Norquay, where we are right now. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing good. You know, the snow's melting and summer's starting soon, so we're excited for the next season.
We're just out on the patio when we got here. We got here super early, as we always do, and the birds were chirping. It was so beautiful up here, just like a nice quiet moment. Amazing, even in the summer. Let's dive into a little bio for Andre. Quite an extensive one, so bear with me here. Andre started skiing at age 3 and never played hockey again. After a ski racing career competing in the North American Cup level, he took the role of head coach for Edelweiss ski team in Wakefield, Quebec, not far from where I'm from. We actually go back quite a...
Went to the same high school.
Absolutely. So lots of ties there. Crazy stuff. Coaching eventually led to a role in the ski operations and eventually a promotion to general manager of the Edelweiss ski area just north of Ottawa. In the fall of 2006, the new owners of Mount Norquay offered Andre the general manager position at Mount Norquay. A big shift from a small ski area in Quebec to a historic ski area located in Banff National Park. Definitely quite the change in scenery for sure. If you've ever been to Edelweiss, you'll know
better snow conditions here too.
Yeah, definitely. During his tenure, they've opened the tubing park and reopened for summer use, which we'll talk a little bit about in a bit, as well as the installation of the Via Ferrata. Andre, through his time here at Mount Norquay, has also significantly increased revenue, so taking it from a winter-only operation to now multi-seasonal. Championed some significant changes to ensure the ski operation is as green as the hill in the summer. So Norquay runs on bullfrog green power. They've made massive reductions to water use, and future plans include even more sustainability initiatives, which I'm sure we'll touch on in a little bit. New ownership of Mount Norquay since 2018, Andre continues to help grow and guide the ski and sightseeing resort through a major proposal with Parks Canada that includes the redevelopment of the Banff train station, also known as the ARP, which we will touch on in a little bit. Their vision for the future includes the return of passenger rail and mass transit gondola to service the historical Mount Norquay area. He served 10 years on the board of Canada West Ski Area Association, which he chaired in 2019 and 2020, and is the current board member on the Passenger Ropeway Sub-Council for Safety Code Councils of Alberta. That's a mouthful. When he's not working, he enjoys spending his time skiing and mountain biking with his 2 teenage daughters. Thank you so much for joining us, Andre.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, wild stuff. In our pre-podcast interview, we both discovered we're from Ottawa. We both went to the same high school. We both worked for the same business back in the day, probably attended some of the same ski sales that they had going on. Got to give a big shout out to Charlie if he's listening, for sure. So thank you so much for joining us. We thought we'd start with a little bit of background on Mount Norquay. So the mountain itself, and this stuff kind of really piqued my curiosity as I was researching it. So Mount Norquay was named in 1904 after John Norquay, the premier of Manitoba, who supposedly climbed the mountain sometime between 87 and 88. The first ski runs date as far back as 1926, With the opening of the ski lodge in 1929, the first rope tows were installed in 1942. So I guess before then they would have just been hiking up.
Yep.
Foot-powered skiing. Awesome. We love that. Was the second ski hill in Canada to install a chairlift in 1948 after supposedly Red Mountain, which opened one in 1947. Since 1978, Norquay has been partnered with Ski Banff, Lake Louise, and Sunshine to promote their activities. There's a total of 60 runs, which run 16,000 kilometers. 85% of the skiing terrain is covered by snowmaking. 3 quad chairs, 1 double chair, 1 magic carpet. The double chair, the North American, which services some of the hardest terrain in North America, with a vertical drop of 503 meters. It's considered challenging, with the runs consistent of 20% easy, 36% medium, 20% difficult, and 16% expert. They're the only resort in the Tri area, so Norquay, Sunshine, Lake Louise, that offer night skiing, which is really reminiscent of Ottawa. It brings me back, the night skiing scene. So yeah, thank you so much. And they've also introduced tubing since Andre, like we said earlier, has joined the team. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And think about those days back in the 40s when they first had a chairlift up the big chair. Skiing in leather boots and wooden skis.
That's wild.
You know, Eddie Hunter told me once they'd go out to the forest and find a tree and carve out a ski out of a specific tree. But, you know, when we ski it now with modern equipment, it's very different. And back in the day, they used to hike up and enjoy those slopes.
Which is wild. Like, Norquay boasts some pretty steep, aggressive terrain.
This is why it was called the North American lift, and then North American, because at the time it was the steepest terrain in North America.
Amazing. So a little significance behind the name. So let's get right down to it. What do you think has kept Norquay alive and relevant for a full century? We're going on 100 years of Mount Norquay. That's no small feat.
You know, what's kept us around is, I mean, obviously our location, being close to Banff is amazing. So many people have been able to experience Norquay. It's right at the doorsteps of the town. That community support is what's kept us going. The ability to innovate and to change and to create and to do new things has also kept us going. And obviously money. I mean, you need to have money to make it all happen.
For sure.
We're a business, and we've been able to figure out ways to make it work. And, you know, we're really keen on the next 100. So we're just trying to line ourselves up for that.
Absolutely. Our episode is entitled Chairlifts, Gondolas, and Big Plans, which we will touch on in a little bit for sure. Big plan being the Norquay 100 vision. So you could tell us a little bit about this initiative. What does it entail?
Well, the Norquay 100 vision is the replacement of the North American chairlift. So the big chair that's there now is not the original one. The original one, 48, was changed in the 60s. The one that's there now has been there since the 60s. It's long in the tooth. It's actually getting a new cable put on it as we speak. But you know, it's come to the end of its usable life and needs to be replaced. And part of our site guideline process was to replace that with an enclosed carrier, because we use it in the summertime, which would mean, you know, a bubble chair or a gondola, and that's what we're proposing to do now, to replace the big chair. Working on those plans, and ultimately get rid of some of the buildings that are here, replace them with modern facilities that meet all standard or that meet all the requirements for accessibility and sustainability and all sorts of things.
Absolutely. I have noticed walking in, like, I haven't been in the Cascade Lodge, especially upstairs, in a number of years. Yeah. It looks great up here. Like, it doesn't feel like a 100-year-old lodge or
this one is certainly not 100 years old. This one was built in 1996.
96.
So this one will be 30 years old next year.
Yeah, it looks great in here, honestly. Even since the last time was probably 10 years ago since I had
we spent a lot of time maintaining it and taking good care of it.
100%. So Matt, we do have some slides pulled up. So the Norquay vision, these are slides that we pulled directly off the Norquay website. It reads as such: as we approach our 100th anniversary, we are looking ahead to what the next century has in store. That's why we developed the Norquay 100 vision, a plan to offer best-in-class sustainability, learning opportunities, and an accessible adventure for all. Now, the next slide, I believe, was, sorry, Matt, what was the name of it?
Respect for residents.
Yeah, so the Respect for Residents slide, I just kind of wanted to read through it. So this is kind of I'm just not sure if people have read this. So part of the design systems that reduce visitor impact on residents by utilizing a train station interception parking lot built by Norquay in 2019. This is the one we're referring to now.
Yeah.
And an enhanced shuttle service reducing traffic congestion. A competitive alternative to Pursuit's own Sulphur Mountain gondola monopoly. So since Parks Canada has approved the expansion of the Sulphur Mountain Visitor Centre, by 31%, its completion in 2016. Visitation has increased by approximately 50%. You guys did put forth some pretty interesting documents on that gondola.
We did, and that's public information. I mean, this is all things that you could, if you go looking onto the internet, find.
100%.
And we felt it's important to share some of the information because what we're trying to do is help change that shift of how people visit the community and give them other options as well.
Absolutely.
I live on the other side of the bridge and I deal with the traffic a lot. So as a resident, I'm also keen and concerned about what we can do.
I would agree with you there. So by offering another option that isn't going across the bridge, therefore alleviating traffic in the town of Banff, correct?
That would hopefully be one of the outcomes.
Absolutely. We all know that getting through Banff in the summer can always be a bit of a difficult time. One of the, actually, part of the information that Norquay brought forward in the town council meetings was a graph from one of their corporate meetings that showed how they were able to increase price exponentially throughout the years. That was just wild for me to read. Anyways, enough about that. What's the end vision of this whole thing? If you had it your way with no red tape, what would Norquay look like in, say, 20 years?
Okay, so I mean, for me, it would be amazing to think that someone could land at the airport or come out from the city on a train, arrive in Banff at the original train station where people used to arrive and where they did up until the 80s. And then from there, they'd have access, not only summer or winter, but access to all sorts of attractions or places in the town, whether it be jumping on Rome Transit, whether it be jumping on a rental bike, walking directly to town. The train station is 400 meters away from downtown. You couldn't ask for a better location. And then not only that, but then accessing potentially the ski area here, and then from there, grabbing a shuttle to get to Lake Louise or Sunshine. So you could see how that vision is pretty amazing. And one thing that you're not seeing in there is the need for a car. So when you think about that traffic and how it impacts all our lives, well, thinking a bigger solution like this and reducing the amount of vehicles, I think is something that I definitely get behind, and I hope other people will too.
Fair enough. I mean, we're definitely looking for answers to that congestion problem. It's always on all of our minds leading into the summer months. This one I was kind of saving for later, but we're kind of on the topic. What are your thoughts on over-tourism? It's a topic that we've kind of broached here and there in our own episodes, not only with yourself, but with different members of different businesses all over town. Do you think that's an issue that we're facing here in Banff?
Yeah, well, we don't decide who gets to come here. Tourism growth is a priority for the federal and provincial governments. Our responsibility is to manage visitation and protect this place. We agree on this responsibility, but we don't have control over the number of visitors.
That's a very good point.
Okay, Banff has many good things in its place to make it a leader in the world. When you look at some of those places that I've seen online, like Venice or some places in Spain where people are putting up signs that they don't want people to be there. Things that we have going for us in Banff are we have a need to reside.
For sure.
Okay, not anyone could live here. Not anyone can buy the real estate. We also have, we have the need to reside, and we also don't allow short-term rentals. Okay, that's huge. So those two things there make our community kind of one to be. I think a lot of other communities would love to have those things in place.
100%. And I think getting to the point where people are putting up signs or asking visitors not to come, I think that directly goes against our values. Like, I don't want to sit here and say that we're against visitation, we're against tourism. Obviously, that's not what we're about. We all work in the tourism business. If you work in Banff in the Bow Valley, you're affected by it. So to deny people to come here, I don't think is the goal, right? Like limiting people's access. I've taken meetings with the mayor, I've taken meetings with other people in town council, and especially from a town's perspective, like they cannot limit people from accessing the town of Banff because it's on Highway 1, first of all.
Yeah.
And it's in its mandate. We're here for everyone. We're open to everyone. So I think it's not a matter of keeping people out. It's how do we make it enjoyable?
How do we get them here in different ways, and how do we take care of our community? I want to be living in a community that supports tourism. I don't ever want to feel like, hey, there's too many. I can feel that there's too many cars.
Yeah, fair.
All right, but people, I think there's still lots of space, and there's lots of ways for them to connect with the national park, and that connection is one that's very important. So, Banff has lots of good things that will allow it to come up with solutions that could make it an inspirational place for other communities.
Well, I think that's a very good point, because especially when we're talking about these things in politics and the public sphere, people are very quick to vilify the side that they're up against. But I think at the end of the day, we're all kind of looking for the same thing. Like, I've been vocal against the train station or the ARP in prior episodes, but that doesn't mean I didn't want to talk to you about it and get your side. Like, if I'm wrong, come and tell me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, share it with the community, right? Because
I think it's easy to have a sentiment that, we're going to build more, there's going to be more people coming. But there's also the flip side of that is that population's growing, there's more people coming.
For sure.
And I think our mayor and other people in the community have pointed that out on multiple times. And, we're trying to come up with good solutions to how to move people. And, industry, business, we're there. We come up with good ideas on how to do this. We're not just doing this for Norquay's benefit. We're doing it for the community's benefit.
Okay.
We have really good intentions. It's a long and lengthy process, and there's lots of public opinion for sure.
of course.
But I think, like you said, we're all aiming for the same goal. We all know that tourism pays the bills.
Of course. It would be silly to sit here and say that it doesn't, or to be like anti-tourism, to live in this place. Well, there's plenty of beautiful places that don't have tourism that you could live in, right? I think that's a little bit of a stance taken by some that is I find a little overstepping, you know what I mean? Let's shift gears a little bit. What attractions are now available at Mount Norquay, and how has that changed since you've kind of taken over?
Well, since 2014, we reopened for summer use, and we've been offering Via Ferrata, which is climbing on the cliffs above us.
Absolutely.
So imagine being able to look up at the mountains in town and think, I'd love to climb one of those. And people now can take our free shuttle bus from the train station or multiple places in town and make it up to the cliff house, where they're fitted out with the correct gear, and they go climbing with an ACMG mountain guide and get to the summit and then look back down at the town. Really amazing experience. We have that. We also have sightseeing for those people who might be a little leery of trying mountain climbing.
Because this is a pretty extreme experience. Like, I've seen the promotional stuff in the pictures. Like, you are literally mountain climbing.
You're climbing, except you're holding on to a rebar and you're tied in with the cable. But we've seen people from as young as 12 years old up to 80 years old experience it. People who are afraid of heights. I brought my own brother here. Who, by the way, his name is Dan also.
Yeah, no.
and he climbed up it and shook his fear of heights. It was amazing. It's such a cool experience.
I think I've always been interested in climbing, but I've always felt like it's a little too extreme for me. So maybe kind of a little intro to get that blood pumping for those that might be in the same boat as me. How did the community, as well as Parks Canada, initially respond to the reopen of summer use?
So, there were some folks that didn't like our ideas, but we worked through that process with Parks Canada. We worked through it with our site guideline process, and we ticked the boxes. We worked through that process and came up with solutions that were acceptable to those who had some opposition, and also with Parks Canada.
Yeah.
Through that site guideline process, we did our first long-range plan, which included reopening for summer use. And as I stated, reopening, because Norquay had been open for summer use prior, for sure.
Okay.
And that's been essential for keeping Norquay, where it is, and making it financially sustainable.
Because someone told me as I was researching this episode that apparently Norquay had given up its rights to the summer use with the expansion of Mystic Ridge, of having more ski terrain. Was that true, or is that just some of those?
I wasn't here at the time, but as I said, Norquay was open from the first chairlift in the 1940s up until the mid-'80s. In the mid-'80s, at that time, it was owned by a company called Banff Lifts, which I believe had investors from potentially Brewster's. There was an ownership group there that ran it. They were looking at making an expansion, and I believe they had ownership in both entities, right?
Okay.
So if you own Norquay and you own the Sulphur Mountain Gondola, you might say, well, why are we running both? Because maybe at the time it didn't make financial sense. As a business operator myself, I would say, well, hey, let's put all our resources into one.
For sure.
And as far as I know, it might have been a business decision. We'll focus our attention on the one. I'm not aware of any document that says that it had been forfeited.
Okay, fair. That was just something that kind of came up. Someone was like, hey, you hear word of mouth stuff as you go. Can you take us through the current gondola proposal and the opening date of December 1st, 2026 on your website? Because I was like, I hadn't heard of any.
So we put that up there as a challenge and a goal.
Okay.
I'd love to say it's set in stone. I mean, we're working hard. Next year is our 100th anniversary, and we were really hoping to have this done by our 100th anniversary. We began the process when we had new ownership take over, which is Lyricon Capital, the Waters family. Lyricon stands for Liam, Riley, and Connor. They're three boys.
Okay.
So it's not some mean corporate thing. It's just the three boys. They're a local family.
That's such a cute, actual name.
It is. It sounds scary, but that's all it is. But when they took over, they immediately started focusing their attention on the future plans. It's something that we'd been working on, but we'd also been working on rebuilding this ski area because when I first got here, it needed lots of improvements. We focused on that. We got the summer use reopened. So the next phase was to start looking at replacing that chairlift because as I said, it's currently getting a new cable, but
it's old, right?
It's old.
It's amongst one of the oldest lifts in Western Canada, right?
It is. And next year marks my 20th season here. And when I showed up here in 2006, the lift was old and it needed to be replaced. So here we are 20 years later, still trying to work on replacing this lift. So it's important. And we had started this process in 2018 at that time. And then there was the whole grander project with everything included, and Parks was a little vocal about it at that time. And so now we've broken it down into different pieces. For instance, you have the ARP, the train's a separate project, the gondola here is a separate project. So now we've been working on that one since 2022.
Okay.
So started that process in 2022, hoping to be ready by 2026. It's a 4-year process. It takes time. We're getting much closer with Parks Canada. We're the first ski area under the new site guidelines to be doing its second long-range plan. Most ski areas are just going through their first long-range plan under the new site guidelines. There had been previous long-range plans before that. So in the second long-range plan process, there's some extra boxes to tick. So we've been working on that, working through the process, and it's tedious, but we're getting there. And so, like I said, we've put this out there so that people know we're still working on it.
Okay.
We are working with Parks, and we hope to, break ground as soon as possible. I'd love to start building some components as early as this fall, maybe next summer. Does that mean that for sure it'll be open in December 2026? I can't guarantee it, but we're going to do the best we can to get there.
Fair enough. Where does that approval stand right now? Is it being reviewed by Parks?
A long-range plan has multiple components. Some of those go to public review, Indigenous consultation, and at the end, it has a ministerial sign-off. We are still in the draft long-range planning phase, which includes kind of scoping, which is what do all the projects look like. Parks is really working hard to understand everything that we're proposing and to make sure that it meets what we had negotiated in the 2011 site guidelines. So for instance, what's our capacity? What are our hours of operations? What's the lift going to look like? All these various things.
Because I did see that there is a capacity of, what was it? Is 3,800 people.
Yeah.
Was that at once up here?
3,800 people at one time is what was.
How would they monitor that? And
It's tough to monitor, and if you read through the site guidelines, there's nothing that says that if you get to 3,801, we're going to shut you down.
Yeah.
It's more of a this is what your design capacity is built for. So you have enough parking space for this. You have enough washrooms for this many people. You have enough building commercial space for this.
Fair.
And so if you compare it to, let's say, commercial space in the community, the ski areas also have a certain amount of allotment of commercial space. And one of the things we're proposing is to build out to our commercial space allotment. So the amount of square meters we have would be enough to handle 3,800 people.
Okay, interesting.
And if you build that for the winter, that same infrastructure is there for the summer. So essentially, you're building for that capacity.
Of course, why not use it all year round then only half the time? That does make a lot of sense. The current proposal states one of the main priorities is to reduce traffic. How would building a new attraction deliver on that promise? Again, we kind of mentioned it earlier by deriving people from the town center, from having to go across the bridge. What other ways would it reduce traffic?
Well, I mean, that's the main one for sure. In 2016, the town had a study by Stantec that showed what were the traffic concerns and what could the mitigations be. I don't know if you've had a look at it, but there was different solutions that had been proposed, some of which Parks Canada had said there's no way you could build these things. And so really what it came down to was mass transit and intercept parking. And this study really showed various pinch points in town. And some of them are crossing over to the south side.
Well, of course.
So by having an alternative sightseeing lift on the north side of the tracks or on the north side of town where people could get right off the Trans-Canada Highway and either drive up here or park at the Intercept parking lot and take one of our free shuttles up, or ultimately a gondola, you could definitely see how that could perhaps split that visitation of that gondola and even out how many people are going through our community.
Fair point.
Living on the south side of the tracks, I see that traffic. I live through it often. I'd love to see an alternative to that.
Well, talking about site guidelines, when you're talking about your own project here at Norquay with the allotment of 3,800 people, when I was looking through the documents you guys put forward about the Sulphur Mountain Gondola project, where all these entities kind of knew that the end goal was to up visitation on that side of the bridge, but no infrastructure they didn't implement that company to build their own infrastructure, that seems to me like a bit of an oversight, which is the similar situation that happened with the Skywalk attraction, where the Skywalk attraction doesn't technically have enough parking for the amount of visitation that it projects in its own plan.
Yeah. So you've hit on a key point here. We're talking about site guidelines. Who has site guidelines?
Yeah.
The ski areas have site guidelines. The ski areas have site guidelines, and that's a result of studies that went on in the 1990s, and then all of a sudden the ski area management guidelines that suggested that ski areas should have a bubble over them. So that I think there was fear at the time that skiers in Banff could become like places in Whistler or other big resorts where there's huge development.
Keep it sprawling and sprawling.
Yeah,
type.
and first off, there's no accommodations. We don't have condos. We don't have things built here. There had been proposals in the 1960s, and they didn't go through. But we're already limited in that respect. So the site guidelines really limited us in terms of they shrunk our overall leasehold. And they really put a cap on how many people we could have, how much commercial space we could have. So all these things are like pre-negotiated, as I said,
100%.
in 2011. Part of that kind of 10, 15-year process to get there. And other outlying commercial activity providers don't necessarily have that same process. When you think of businesses that run and operate outside of the town of Banff itself, because the town of Banff has its commercial cap, it has its restrictions.
Of course.
There's not too many operators outside of those areas, right? So there's the ski areas. There would be the biggest ones. And then there are others like Sulphur Mountain Gondola and the Skywalk. And so to put it simply, they don't have the same rules.
For sure.
They didn't have to necessarily go through the same process that we did in order to get those things approved. And I think that's why we ended up in this situation were, maybe they weren't as restricted.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that way as we're pouring through the documentation. Well, let's shift to the ARP because we're kind of talking about it a little bit and how that fits into the whole gondola plan. Because, like I said, I was a little confused when I originally saw the opening. Like, as you click on the Norquay website, it was like opening gondola. I was like, what? So to be clear, the current gondola plan is for here at the base of Mount Norquay up to the Cliff House. That's not included in the train station ARP anymore.
No. Okay, so that one on our website is talking about the replacement of the big chair with a gondola.
Okay.
So we're replacing that lift.
Yeah.
And we're going to be getting rid of old buildings that are inefficient and expanding the Cliff House as it was all stated in the site guidelines.
Yeah.
The gondola or aerial transit, as it's now stated in the ARP, is just a subcomponent of things that could potentially occur down there.
Okay.
So when you talk about ARP, you're not saying like, here's the area redevelopment plan of the train station lands. They're going to build a gondola. They're going to build a train. All this is going to happen. The ARP is when you trigger an ARP, it's because it's a larger plan. It takes more than just giving out a development permit or something like that. So you have to study all the various things, and you have to think about long term in the future and how it's going to be used. And so we included these projects that could potentially happen in the future if the stars aligned and if things happen. If the train, if things all align and it happens, great. The train station will be ready and the ARP will have considered it. Same thing with the gondola. If you removed it from the ARP process and then all of a sudden 10 years from now you said, you know what, we really should have a gondola there, then you'd have to reopen that whole process. So that's why you're kind of capturing all these things in that initial process as pie in the sky thinking, okay? We didn't put like other things like.
So the ARP is basically the answer to the question is what would you do if you didn't have any red tape, basically, right?
Yeah, what would you do if you didn't have any red tape? You have to keep in mind too that our site guidelines did ask us to consider the feasibility of a gondola from town to Norquay, and to work with the town.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
the town knows they have a traffic problem, and they're trying to do everything within their power to find solutions.
Well, we will talk about that a little bit in the multimodal transportation hubs, which has been brought up. But onto the subject of passenger rail specifically, that's a big part of the plan. And we're kind of talking about that right now as kind of like, I don't want to say a pipe dream, as it's definitely a plan, but there's a lot of roadblocks that kind of stand in that way. What are some of them that stand in that way right now? I think they've already approved the train line from the airport to downtown. Is that correct? Or there's funding for it?
It's more complicated than that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a process that the Waters family has worked on since 2016. And to see the amount of time they've spent and their own resources to try and make this happen, it's impressive. The first step in that whole process was to just get a corridor with CPKC to say, hey, can we put a train here? That took a while, and finally that was approved. Then the next step is, get funding, which was federal funding from the Canada Infrastructure Bank, which was put in 2016.
Yeah.
So, this all goes back to 2016, 8 years now. Then you have to work with provincial governments.
Yeah.
You have to work with municipal governments, the town of Banff, town of Canmore, Cochrane, Calgary.
There's lots of municipalities that lie
Lots
in
of
between.
municipalities. So basically what I'm trying to get to is that there's lots of stakeholders involved in this whole process. Right now, our premier of Alberta has seen that the population's growing. If we don't do anything in the next 30 years in Alberta, we're going to be behind on infrastructure. So they've done a rail forum in the fall where they talked about how Alberta could be connected in the future. And one of the things that they had most serious consideration was that first initial connection from the airport to downtown. This was a bit of a hot topic when we initially proposed the train. Now what it's become is that is something that the city of Calgary needs. It's something that the province needs, something that they need to connect. We would then take the train from that edge to Banff. So we're responsible for that section. We get 3 trains per hour that get to go through the whole corridor from the airport right to Banff.
That's one way, or
that's
3 trains one way?
Yeah, 3 trains per hour, one way here, and then return.
Return, yeah.
Okay, and that has the ability to move a significant amount of people. The train itself also, though, will move people everywhere, right? Like people from downtown can get to the airport. People who live in Canmore can get to downtown. People who live in Cochrane can get to Banff. So right now, this is all in the Premier's hand, and she seems quite supportive of it. And really kudos to the Waters's for really pushing this initiative. I don't think it would have gotten as far as it has without their constant, helping to make it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. Mass transit is definitely something arguably that we need. What ripple effects would we have as towns that lie on this rail line, whether it be Banff or Canmore or whatever?
So I participate, or I'm invited to listen in on traffic meetings the town has been hosting since 2016, because town's doing everything it can, and I can't, I think I'm an informed enough citizen to realize that they're trying to do everything they can to reduce the amount of cars in the town. And in these studies, they bring up these amazing statistics. I wrote them down here, so just let me find them here.
Of course.
24,000 cars per day is the average amount of cars in our community in the summer months from June to August. 32,000 cars is when it's gridlock.
Yeah.
Okay? And this 24,000 cars is basically happening every day now in the summertime. Out of those number of cars, 21% of those cars are rental vehicles, and they're able to trace it back to around the airport. So they know that people are flying in, hopping in a rental car, driving to Banff.
For sure.
Okay, another 27% of those cars are non-Albertan plates, so plates from any other country or U.S. or BC.
So maybe they've road tripped
or
here.
Ontario road tripped here. And then 15% are from the city of Calgary. So if you start to think of being able to reduce some of these vehicles off the road, so get rid of the rental cars or get rid of just 20% of these cars, that could be the equivalent of 6,000 cars per day that aren't entering our community. So when you start to take 6,000 off that peak day of 32, you're getting down to 24,000. So now it just feels like the peak day becomes a busy day.
A little more.
And then the average days are now becoming below average. But you actually start to bring it back to where we used to be. So, if we don't do anything, and the population's still growing and our governments are working on bringing more people here, we're going to end up in a bit of a pickle. So I think it's super important to, like, the ripple effects are, if you do nothing, I don't see it getting any better.
True.
Okay? And if you don't start to take these other solutions seriously, like I think we need to get behind things like a train, or mass transit, or getting people out of their cars in general.
Have you had any pushback from, say, the rental companies around the airport at all about trying to really cut their business out? Or
I don't think. They may have commented if they're aware about it. Maybe they're not. No, I haven't had any pushback.
Okay, fair. When we dip into the ARP, a lot of critics has said that rezoning in the town of Banff, like they've been trying to petition recently, may be a bit of a Trojan horse when it comes to commercialization in a protected area. What would be your response to that? Like, I would think especially to commercialization at the train station itself, being in that that wildlife corridor.
Sorry, can you ask the question again?
It would be, critics say that the train station ARP risks becoming a Trojan horse to more commercialization in a protected area, so that it's kind of a slippery slope in that sense. Like if we develop, you know.
So we've been transparent since the beginning. We've put our plans out there, like right from the beginning. We've been very transparent about everything we want to do. The town has a commercial cap. I think it's clear that there's a certain amount of space left, and the train station has a certain amount of space left.
Yes, and I do want to touch on that point. I did actually speak with the mayor, and everything in the train station ARP as far as commercial square footage is above board. It has been allotted from other areas, and it does make sense in that. So I do want to retract my previous statements about it being an infringement on the cap, because it is not. So
yeah, the cap, there's a cap in place, just like there's a cap in place for Norquay.
Yeah.
We're just trying to build out to our cap. All we're trying to do, we didn't dream up this space at the train station. This space has existed. It's there. when we started, when it was taken over by Norquay, the goal was to use that and develop it. And yes, it may sound like, oh my gosh, we're just going to develop more things and invite more people. We've done some studies that show that people are coming to Banff. They're not going to come to Banff now because there's a new train station and there's new restaurants at the train station or new things that they can get to. They're going to come to Banff and they're going to decide what they want to do when they get here, whether they ride one gondola or another. That's not what's going to attract them to come here. What's important to point out, though, is that space exists at the train station. As you just said, it's space that's there. It's nothing that we dreamt up, and we just want to develop it to be used properly. And that includes the existing parking lot that we built in 2019, getting people out of their cars, giving them the services they need. I work down at the train station, and I see people coming in, and number one thing is washrooms.
For sure.
People need washrooms. People need access to maybe buying a sandwich if they're going on a hike, maybe renting a bike, maybe going down to the canoe docks from there. Like, it's such a good central location. That's why it was the train station to begin with. It's a central location, the original entry to the town of Banff. And it has commercial cap allotment. All we're trying to do is develop it.
Is use it, yeah.
And it's just become a hot topic because we also want to include the big picture thinking. And that's where people got a little bit up in arms, like, what's going on here? But you have to understand that this will be subjected to a strategic environmental assessment, and any other of those big projects are going to go through another rigorous set of approvals. So by saying, oh yeah, the ARP is okay, you're not saying yes to all these things.
Yeah.
You're saying that, yeah, maybe they might happen one day.
Fair, which is, I think, a good point to make. I think we're quick to jump the gun. Like, I saw that. I saw your website, and I was like, oh my God, they're opening something.
Well, I think it's good. It's good that you're informing yourself.
Well, 100%. That's why we're here having this conversation, is to bring more information to the people. Now, part of the ARP, as I read it, was an additional 950 stall parking lot to be paved north of the tracks. That would be once the current parking lot is developed into housing, correct? We have an existing 450 stalls. Yeah.
Okay, that was built in 2019. And the north side of the tracks.
Yeah.
Okay, the entire train station lands is 35 acres. It's a big chunk. Like, when you look at in our community, what's actually left.
Yeah.
I think it's the third largest parcel of land. And if you talk to the mayor, they know that it's the only parcel of land left within our town of Banff boundary where parking could be developed. Originally, we had proposed more parking than that. And in our first go-arounds with Parks Canada, they said that we should limit it because of different wildlife zones. Okay, so 450 stalls in the existing lot. 170 stalls already exist in the Fenlands lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you take that difference, 450, 170, you're down to, I think it's another 400 stalls that are being built on that north side of the tracks in an area that's previously disturbed. We do monitoring in that site. Like, CP used to have fuel storage there.
Okay.
Those areas, like, it's already a parking lot. It's just reconfiguring the Fenlands parking lot. It's not it's an area that's it's not a greenfield site. I'd say it's a brownfield site. It's an area that's been previously disturbed.
Okay.
And it's adding those parking spaces. Ultimately, what it comes down to, and I know the question is, why do you need parking if you have a train coming?
Well, that's it, right? It's like, why do we need more parking if the goal is to have less vehicles?
For sure, absolutely. Vehicles are still going to come. Part of that also is that in the long run, I mean, if Norquay's parking lots here in our wildlife corridor were to be shut down, they would be used down there. So our day visitors could come on the train or park there. The town is still going to need to intercept parking with the amount of people that are still coming. I think the town at one point had said that they could use up to 2,000 intercept parking stalls to make it work. The entire downtown core is about 1,200 stalls. Imagine removing as much downtown parking as possible so that people would actually stay out of the community. And I think you have to think about that sometimes too. I think ultimately, if less people actually were just driving from one place to the other in town, we would have less traffic. If we built our community so that people would leave their car behind, ultimately in the city.
Well, I think that would be my point, is like, why intercept parking in Banff? Why not intercept parking at the casino or elsewhere where there's already these vast parking lots that are sitting empty?
That sounds like a great idea, and you know, maybe it's a good research that you could look into.
For sure.
From what I've learned to date is that these are complicated things. You know, just building the one that we have, and imagine if we didn't have the current 500 stall parking lot, what it would be like. And like I said, these are on lands that these were the last areas within the town boundary where this could be done. And this goes back to that 2016 study on traffic in our community. These are the only solutions we have. We don't have other options to do things that are simple. Like there's no way Parks is going to give us land outside of the town boundary to build intercept parking. And the other thing too is that people are still going to drive their cars. I'd love to say that they're not. But, you know.
So how do we get them on the train?
How do we get them on the train? Well, the train has to be reasonably priced. It has to be efficient and effective for people. It has to hopefully cost less than what it would cost them to drive their car. I think, first off, a train is going to be nicer than a bus. I think it's going to be a lot easier to get people onto a train than a bus. But all those solutions, though, yeah, you're not going to get everyone. But if you're getting 10, 15, 20, 30% of the traffic one day by train, that's going to have a significant impact on our lives here in town.
Because I think the train, from the people that I've talked to, has gotten pretty positive reviews, in my opinion. When you ask around, like, people think it would be a great idea as far as getting people out of their vehicles. I don't know, how do we get them to drop their vehicles off before they get to Banff is kind of like the big thing. Because like if you're a person that, say, has a family with strollers and diapers to change, like there's extenuating circumstance to everything, or limited mobility, these people are going to have to take their vehicles, right? Like,
yeah, if parking was expensive in town, I mean, it used to not exist. It used to be free. And so what are you telling people when it's free? Come on in. And when you start to charge for parking, then people start to think twice, and then they're looking for intercept parking. And if those costs continue to increase, whether it's the cost of vehicle, cost of gas, cost of parking, you're going to get more people who are going to look for alternate means to visit.
For sure. And I did ask the mayor specifically, is like, what about rented parking spaces, right? So you rent your parking stall for the day or whatever, you pay an exuberant amount. Like I think Lake Louise up to like $36 or $42 for the day, which is like good. You know, it's going to be a premium service to bring your car into the town. But the problem is once those stalls are filled, they can't tell people, once again, it's like they can't tell people not to come, which is the wildest thing. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Learcon, maybe the Waters Corporation, was involved in a transportation hub proposal under the Mount Royal.
No,
that was not them?
No, not at all.
So the question was, why hasn't underground parking ever been explored as an option?
Yeah. So that proposal was in the newspapers last summer, and I think at first it was in there without anyone, you know, stating that it was theirs. I think it was cleared up afterwards. Funny one. But okay, let me run you through the numbers. In 2019, we built the intercept parking. Okay, 500 stalls. It costs $3.5 million to build it. $1 million of studies and assessments and things that were done prior. So $4.5 million, and that doesn't even include like the cost of the land. Like if we had to buy the land, like this is a long-term lease from CP. So you know, add to that even more. But at $4.5 million. This parking at 500 stalls comes out to about $7,000 to $9,000 per parking stall. Okay. So they call that surface parking space. Okay, so $7,000 to $9,000 per stall. If you go to elevated parking, so if you start building parkades, then you start talking about I believe it's 60 to 70,000 per stall. So right off the bat, it's 10 times more.
Yeah.
Okay, so that 3.5 million becomes 35 million, 45 million. And then if you go to underground parking, you're going up to 80 to 100,000 per stall.
Per stall, yeah.
Okay.
So cost.
So yeah, you could do it. But two things. One is, who's going to pay for that? Okay, because now you're up to 55 million for an underground parking of similar size. The other thing, though, too, is that parking lot being in town is going to be attracting people to town. So they're still going to want to drive into town.
Fair.
They still might drive across the bridge and play the little game of I'm driving through town before they park or eventually. So the town, from what I have seen, is been trying to get people out. Like they are supportive once again, back to that 2016 study of moving people outside to perimeter parking, or like you said, like get them completely somewhere else.
Yeah, like that's kind of, I think, the obvious answer to me is like park them at the casino. Like the casino has a huge empty lot.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not empty all the time, but there's tons of parking there.
Yeah, there could be options for sure. But number one is figuring out the policies that you want to put in place. How do you want to get people here? What are the options you want to give them when they're here? And that's why you kind of got to keep an open mind about things like gondolas or aerial transit. And you got to put them in that same category as buses, as subways, as people movers, okay? More and more you see examples of aerial transit everywhere in the world where they're moving people. They've just built a 14-kilometer gondola in Mexico City to move people, and it's the safest transportation, the best transportation they have to solve their traffic problems. So I think it's important that, like you said, like you have to come up with these ideas, but you have to also be thinking of having the centers where people can get to, and from there go off to experience all these other things without needing a car. And so you have to keep that open mind about these various things, knowing that they're going to have different approval processes along the way. By saying yes to the airport, you're not saying yes to a gondola, you're not saying yes to a train. Those are all things that will hopefully happen afterwards.
Well, that's an important important line in the sand to make for sure, because I think people are, like I said, are quick to jump down your throat of like, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. Myself included, right? Like I had some tough questions in here.
I think a lot of people are afraid of, I think a lot of people are feeling a sentiment that there's a lot of people and it could become overwhelming. It's not, it's a lot of cars. I think the cars are what becomes the most overwhelming. The national parks are for the people to use. They're here for them. They're here for people to experience and to make their own connection. And it's important for Canadians to be able to connect with their national parks. And we can't decide who's going to visit and who's not going to visit.
It's true. Like I've said this in the past too, and it's like trying to attract maybe some visitation that is less hell-bent on just being in the town, right? Like national parks are meant to enjoy wild space. And it's like if you're coming, like for example, when we had our pedestrian zone, if you're coming to town just to have a beer and a burger and take a picture, you're kind of missing the point of what this place is for. But again, we can't limit who's coming. We can't limit people and say, you have to do this. You have to go for a hike on your holiday.
But when you put people on mass transit, public transit, you have the opportunity to feed them interpretive messaging, right?
Fair.
So now you have a chance to say, hey, guess what? Don't throw your garbage out the window. You're in a national park. Hey, guess what? Leave your car behind, or thanks for leaving your car behind. And I think they do that in Rome already.
Fair.
So imagine like you're on a train and the whole time on the train you're saying, welcome to our national park, and here's the best way to visit it. Here are access to hikes and all these various things. And same on a gondola. Like the gondola we're going to put up here, we're going to have panels on the inside explaining why we do things a certain way. And it is the opportunity to get to teach people. You're not going to be able to teach everyone. And there are going to be people who are going to just use this park the way they use it, but it's difficult to choose who gets to do what.
But no, it's a good point. You almost have like an hour training session on how to be a good visitor if you do have them on a train from the airport, right? Like I think that's a very good point. What are some of the ways that you guys plan to mitigate human-wildlife conflicts if the ultimate goal is to get more people up here? Like we said earlier, we saw some beautiful birds outside. We saw, what else did we see on the way up? We saw some mule deer. We saw some bighorn sheep. How are we gonna, like if the goal is to get more people up here?
We currently, operate a free bus service. And I'd love to say that we're moving the majority of our guests on it. But we move about 25% of our guests on that free bus. In the future, I could see, because this is an important wildlife corridor, and there's lots of things that could be made to make it better. I totally agree with that. One of the things, too, is to seriously consider a gondola. If you imagine Norquay, because we started skiing here in 1926, they built the road in the 1920s. Okay, so they used to come up here, they used to hike up, used to come up with horse and buggy. Eventually, they built a road. At that time, if they had technology to build a gondola, they could have said, hey, let's just build a tramway up there or a gondola, and they would have never built a road. And you wouldn't have a road through the wildlife corridor. That road is 165 acres of land in that wildlife corridor. So yes, you could talk about the small sliver of wildlife corridor by the train station lands, but you can also look at the broader picture and include this section here. And so that's why I think it's important to have a good look at these things and come up with good ways to mitigate the impacts on the wildlife. And at the end of the day, those things also take money. And what we're trying to do is create financial sustainability so that we can help to pay for some projects like this and make it better.
Fair. Because, yeah, I think like the big opposition to the whole project is the impact on the railway lands, right?
You have to keep in mind that those railway lands, if they weren't leased by us and they were still in the hands of CP, they could build what they want there.
True. So I guess this is better than.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, what would be the
I get it. I
opposite,
get it
right?
that it's an area that could have some concern, but look at the bigger picture too. There's areas here. If you're that concerned about wildlife, well, let's look at the big picture here and let's get even more traffic off of our road, and so that those mule deer and those sheep and those animals can just be grazing about without having cars drive by or buses drive by.
So that would be the ultimate goal, would be to have the gondola from the train station and shut that road down, or be able to shut
the road is not ours to shut down. It's not our road. It's Parks Canada's. That would be their decision to make.
Okay, interesting.
But you can imagine, like, our goal would be to move 100% of our customers by aerial transit.
Fair.
It's a bus. It's a different style of bus. And by the way, it's electric. It's quiet. The only impact it would have is a visual one, and that could be mitigated through different colors and tones of the towers. If you look at, next time you drive by the Norquay Bridge and you look up at it, and imagine if a gondola was going by, what it would look like. You see light poles, okay? There's like 30 light towers, and there's traffic going by all the time. So add 2 more towers and gondola cars going by, you wouldn't even see it.
Yeah. So yeah, visual disturbance, I don't think. Plus, it becomes part of the landscape after a while. You could argue that.
What's another visual disturbance? Traffic.
Yeah.
Like at some point, which visual disturbance do you want? How do you want to move people? Do you want them driving around, or do you want to get them out of their cars and get them into transit systems that can teach them, that can show them information? Imagine in the future with AI, like you hop on a gondola or a train, and the message is fed to you in your own language.
Wild, yeah.
I mean, this is just in my own. I'm getting a little bit too far here, but I think that there's a bright future, and we have to be open to really exploring it. Like, take it seriously, because there's some good options here for our community.
Fair. So how do we balance growth and environmental responsibility, in your opinion? I think it's kind of the fine line that we're all trying to find, myself included. Like, I'm not saying what I said in the past is factual, or, well, not factual, that it's the best way. No, everyone thinks they have the best way anyways. What would be your way?
Banff exists to take care of the visitors. And I think that may have changed over the years. But regardless, we're here to take care of those visitors. We have a commercial cap on the growth. And we just want to build what is capable to be built within that cap. We're not asking to do more. We're trying to come up with ways to find that better balance so that people can have a visit with less impact on us, the residents. I'm a resident of Banff. You're a resident of Banff. Like, I don't ever want to look at a tourist and go, man, why are those people here? I want to be there, and I want to be a happy guy going, hey, welcome. I'm glad you came out here. Let us tell you about this. And a lot of us, like, we all care. Like, we all work in tourism.
For sure.
And we also have to pay our rent and pay our mortgages and find a way to live here. So, it's a fine balance. But, how are we going to get to that community that is going to create that atmosphere that's good for visitors and it's good for residents? And that is going to take some innovative ideas. And it's going to be scary. But, people do need to take the time to inform themselves.
For sure, which is why we wanted to have you on. Again, like, I've learned a lot since we've sat down and started talking, some facts, because the ARP can be misrepresented and it can be misread as well, right?
Everything. I mean, being involved in this now for a number of years, what I found is I talk to people about things, and then you think that they may remember, or you see them again, you talk about it again. And, people are busy doing their own lives, and it's important to re-go look at these things and go and seek out that information. I mean, we have the Eco Transit Hub website that shares a ton of information. Down at the train station, we've been putting up information. We've invited people there for public seminars and sessions.
Okay.
And we're always trying to find ways to put out our message. This is why we're putting stuff on our website. And, you know, when you put a countdown clock to a gondola, it stirs some interest.
It caught my attention.
You know, when you clicked on that, it brought you also to our 100 vision. So we're constantly trying to share our message. This goes back to this whole idea of being transparent. We're not working in the backgrounds here trying to do these shifty, shady things. We've been out there from the beginning talking about these things in a very open way. We have reached out to groups who are opposed to it in the very beginnings. And, you know, conversations are hard to have, but we're willing to have them, and we've tried to have them.
Well, I think that's the most important part, is having those conversations. With the political landscape now, you're almost expected to be combative with your quote-unquote enemy or your opposition. And I think, especially in a place like the National Park, I think that should be the last tactic used. You know what I mean? We should all be working together, whether it be the town, business, Parks Canada. We should all be working together in order. I mean, this place, I guess, unfortunately, will be growing. It's the reality of the fact is tourism has grown exponentially. You can tell by the graphs of visitation.
Alberta just hit over 5 million residents yesterday.
So I don't think that shows any signs of stopping. And who can blame them? I mean, we're both from Ottawa. We live here, right? Yeah. And I think having that attitude of, oh, the tourists are here is the wrong one, right? Like, I was a tourist once.
Yeah. And you had a national parks experience that triggered you to stay here. And now you've become a national park supporter.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's important. We need people who are going to love our parks. We don't want to love them to death. We want to take care of them. But we have to come up with innovative solutions to take care of them. So, you know, I just hope people are going to be open in this process, in looking at it seriously and considering all the various aspects. You know, I don't like when people use the word attraction and thinking it's going to draw in more people. I think we have to think about moving people and how we're going to move people, and not in vehicles, and how we're going to get them to be able to access these wonderful places that we love to.
It's a very good point. I think that brings us to our final question, which may be a bit more of a rhetorical question, but feel free to comment on it if you'd like. And it might be one that's a little bit more for our audience. And the question is, if we keep building to manage crowds, aren't we just inviting more crowds to manage? I don't know.
Yeah. And the question I'd have to ask is, what if we do nothing?
Well, again, that's the opposite side of the coin, right?
If we do nothing right now, and if we don't build anything, I don't see how it's going to get better. You know, unless you just have lineups of cars trying to wait to get in, and someone's sitting at the road waving people in and saying, yeah, you can come in and you can't. I don't think so. I think, you know, we're at a point now where we have a good opportunity to create the infrastructure for the future. You know, Banff, we're sitting at 4.5 million visitors, somewhere around there. Banff has seen 4.5 million visitors before. In the 90s, mid-90s, there was 4.5 million visitors. Most of them came by bus. There was a lot of tour operators at the time. There was a lot of buses. It was moving people in mass transit.
Yeah.
And what I've found recently is people seem to be, they want to be independent. They want to have a car. They think they could just drive around everywhere. And we have to try and change them from doing that.
Well, I think I agree with you there. There's kind of a perception of taking the bus as like less than taking your fancy car or whatever, right? So I don't know. When that becomes the only option, maybe people will take it.
We did it here when we did Toonie Days a long time ago to celebrate our 85th anniversary. Too many people came out in cars. It was crazy. So then we started doing a cool carpool day, which was, you know, because we saw people showing up in a bus or like families that were coming out. And it was so nice for them to get this experience. And what we tried to get away from was someone coming out alone in their car. So, you know, coming up with ways for people to use mass transit or to carpool or to try and reduce their vehicle impact on our community is something we all need to take seriously.
Well, that's it. I think we all want the same things at the end of the day. We all want sustainability, right? We want to protect this place that we all love. We don't want to limit people, because we can't. You can't tell people, no, you can't come in. And I think that's kind of an elitist way, elitist mindset to be. Like, you can come in, you can't come in. can't be doing that.
If you do that, just money will.
Oh, well, that's it. So
one.
it's like, how do we move forward? Mass transit, I think, yeah, it's got to be one of the main focuses for sure. Where do we go from here? Who knows? Who knows? But I think that's all the time we have for today. Any final thoughts at all you want to share with us?
Any final thoughts? Well, thanks for having me. And, I think that this is an important time for our community to seriously consider some options. And I hope people will remain open-minded and really come down and learn about it more. Like, go to the website, read up on it, ask us questions. We're here to answer them.
Absolutely. Like you said earlier, there's been plenty of public input already, and I think that's ongoing. The environmental assessment is being conducted currently for part of it.
It's being worked on now. We
Yeah.
have the terms of reference for Parks Canada, and hopefully that will be out later this summer.
Yeah, so I implore everyone to go read the documentation for yourself. Keep up with us as we'll try and bring you the most accurate information we can moving forward by talking to people involved, just like we have today. Also going to be doing some, these are all questions we're going to ask members of our council and stuff moving forward as well, diving into the changes that may be coming to our town in the future. So if it's your first time listening to us, don't forget to like and subscribe. 70% of our viewers, we know you're out there watching from the shadows. Don't be shy to hit that button. It helps us bring you plenty more guests. Thank you so much, Andre, for taking the time to chat with us.
Thanks for having me.
I think, yeah, I'm back on the fence again, like every time I talk to someone new about this subject, my perception changes a little bit, because what happens if we do nothing?
Yeah.
I think that's a good question that I didn't write down, as what's the other option,
Yeah, the other option is doing the same old thing, and we'll have the same old results.
Well, that's it, right? So I don't know. I'm not going to tell you what's right. Andre's not going to tell you what's right. Matt's not going to tell you what's right. He's got blood in his eye. Thank you so much for everyone for tuning in. Thank you to Drink Shaft for keeping us sponsored and fueled up and caffeinated for this talk. Stay tuned for more. We'll bring you as much as we can, like every week. See you next Tuesday.